On Friday, Donald Trump posted, "I absolutely love that Colbert got fired. His talent was even less than his ratings." Would an untalented man be able to compose the following satirical witticism? Go yourself.
He's going to be a factor for a while. It's so funny because, you know, he was just this knucklehead. I knew him before he was, a president. He was just a guy who was chasing girls. You know, every time he went out, he'd come over and be like, "What's the name of that girl?" You know, that's all he was. And the idea that there's this whole group of people that, you know, that they think he's the champion of, which he certainly can't stand.
Trump steps into the spotlight believing his fame will protect him, but Court and Clooney aren't holding back. They're sharp, quick, and having fun tearing through his illusions. It's a show like no other late-night comic, with biting humor joining forces with Hollywood's smoothest grin. Together, they strip Trump down like an overripe banana, loud, messy, and getting worse by the second. This isn't like teasing, it's a full-on takedown with perfect timing.
At this point, Trump isn't even trying to hide his awfulness. His critics accuse him of being a wannabe dictator, so what does he do? He sits down with Hungarian dictator and elephant seal barking for a trout, Viktor Orban. Orban went down to Mar-a-Lago on Friday for an official fake state visit with the
the authoritarian, the demagogue, it goes away when they go away, and he will go away. And they don't have anybody that's as charismatic as him. He's charismatic, there's no taking that away from him. He's a television star. He's charismatic. I mean, I don't agree with him at all on anything, but, you know, he was famous from the...
Stephen Colbert thrives on absurdity, and Trump provides it in abundance. Every tweet, rally, or rambling interview becomes fresh comedy material, and Colbert doesn't just point out the slip-ups, he magnifies them until the ridiculousness is undeniable. While Trump tries to project authority, he often looks more like a chaotic stand-up comic, tossing out half-finished slogans that sound like bad punchlines. Colbert capitalizes on that, showing him not as a leader, but as the joke itself, funny only because he doesn't realize it.
I don't know what you all are talking about, but everybody I talk to is talking about what Donald Trump doesn't want to talk about. So let's talk about it. It being the conspiracy surrounding his old dancing buddy, Jeffrey Epstein. There you go.
Clooney takes a sharper approach, cutting into Trump's insecurity rather than his antics. While Colbert mocks the clownish act, Clooney exposes the obsession with fame, ratings, and applause. His effortless confidence makes Trump's constant need to brag about wealth and recognition look almost childish. The contrast alone feels like a roast Clooney doesn't have to prove anything, while Trump clings to approval like a kid gripping a juice box. Side by side, Clooney's ease makes Trump look like a parody of ambition, always chasing validation that never really comes.
I didn't think people would vote for someone who was so deeply flawed, you know. I mean, I know Donald Trump, you know, I mean, that's the thing is people, you know, I have his phone number in my phone book. He was the guy that came to the bars and asked me about which cocktail waitress was single. You know, that's who he was.
This is back in the 90s.
Not that long, no, back in the 2000s, quite honestly. And so there's this part of you that just goes, well, that guy shouldn't be president. But I was wrong, and he was, and our democracy.
Colbert doubles down by mocking Trump's speaking style, the endless tangents, broken sentences, and bold claims that fade into nothing. It feels like a chaotic improv show with no script, leaving the audience baffled. His roast works because of the precision, mimicking Trump's rhythm, showing how promises collapse mid-sentence, and highlighting how a man so desperate to appear strong ends up sounding lost in his own jumble of words.
For years, before he was, reelected, and recently, since they all got into office, a bunch of high-ranking people in Trump's administration have kept promising to release the files surrounding Jeffrey Epstein, his mysterious clients, and his suspicious death. But now, suddenly, for reasons that I legally cannot think of, Donald Trump seems desperate to stop us from knowing who Jeffrey Epstein's client is.
Clooney strikes at Trump's fixation on looks, the hair, the tan, the constant insistence on seeming full of vitality, and turns it into sharp comedy. With his own effortless aging as contrast, he mocks Trump's vanity as tragic theater. The orange glow becomes a symbol of desperation, the hair a crown of denial. Clooney reveals not strength, but fragility, portraying a man so busy covering cracks with layers of disguise that the facade itself begins to collapse.
Trump is a big fan of yours, but he posted in July, now fake movie actor George Clooney is getting into the act. He's turned on Crooked Joe. What does Clooney know about anything? Should get out of politics and go back to television. Movies never really worked for him.
I will if he does.
He doesn't know that movies are fake, does he?
I don't think so.
Colbert rips into Trump's business record bankruptcies, failed casinos, the sham university showing how every so-called success leaves behind lawsuits and broken promises. He jokes that Trump is the only man who could make a casino where the house always wins actually lose. The irony is effortless, and Colbert plays it to the fullest, painting him as a monopoly man gone broke, with an empire built on press releases instead of profits. Clooney, meanwhile, widens the lens to mock Trump's obsession with Hollywood. Trump chased celebrity approval, yet the very industry he craved rejects him with laughter. Clooney points out the irony of a man trying to buy cultural relevance, but ending up as everyone's punchline. In his framing, Trump isn't a star at all, he's the blooper reel.
And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, my mustache comes to you with a heavy heart because while I was on vacation, my Paramount paid Donald Trump a $16 million settlement over his 60 past lawsuits. As someone who has always been a proud employee of this network, I am offended. And I don't know if anything will ever repair my trust in this company. But just taking a stab at it, I'd say $16 million would help.
Colbert digs into Trump's political career, mocking the chaos of his administration, the revolving staff, endless scandals, and press conferences that unraveled like cheap yarn. He likens the presidency to a reality show that should have been canceled after the pilot, yet somehow ran for 4 wild seasons. The humor comes from treating government like a soap opera, with Trump as the dramatic lead who never knew his lines. Clooney, on the other hand, lands his blows by contrasting Trump with real statesmen. He reduces Trump's so-called achievements to staged photo ops, making foreign policy look more like a travel blog than strategy. To him, Trump's diplomacy was closer to autograph collecting than alliance building. The punchline hits hard because it strips away any sense of gravitas, leaving only a man hooked on appearances.
Unlike your ability to sleep at night, the Epstein scandal will not go away. The president denied that Attorney General Pam Bondi informed him that his name was in the Epstein file. So naturally, last night, the Wall Street Journal reported that Attorney General Pam Bondi informed the president that his name was in the Epstein file. I, for one, was shocked. What are you going to tell me next? That the Pope...
Colbert zeroes in on Trump's constant self-pity, mocking how he always casts himself as the victim of the media, the establishment, or anyone who criticizes him. He flips it whining into comedy, painting Trump as the richest martyr alive, a billionaire president crying, "If he were powerless." For Colbert, Trump isn't a fighter against the system, but a complainer-in-chief, drowning in his own grievances. Clooney tightens the blow by focusing on legacy. While Trump longs to be remembered as a great historical figure, Clooney frames him as a cautionary tale of punchline future generations will study as proof of how spectacle can cheapen democracy. He contrasts Trump's hunger for immortality with the reality of being remembered as little more than politics' loudest embarrassment. Together, Colbert and Clooney form a perfect tag team, one ridiculing Trump's words and antics, the other deflating his ego and vanity.
In fact, yesterday, he said he was surprised anyone even cares about the guy.
I don't understand it. Why they would be so interested. He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life.
That sentence was never a big factor in terms of word. He went on.
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff.
Yes. No, he's right. The Epstein son.
Trump isn't just roasted, he's taken apart piece by piece. Every flaw is dragged into the light and exaggerated until all that remains is desperation's outline. The strength of the takedown lies in balance. Colbert sharp with satire, Clooney smooth with ridicule. Together, they leave Trump collapsing under the weight of his own absurdity. The man who once demanded loyalty and applause is revealed as a parody of himself. They don't invent jokes. They simply magnify the truth he tries to hide, turning his dream of being a titan into the reality of being a cautionary tale. Colbert then targets Trump's obsession with crowd sizes, one of his most absurd insecurities. No matter the event, Trump inflates the numbers like a carnival barker selling tickets to an empty tent. Colbert ridicules the image of a man bragging about millions when photos show half-empty spaces, comparing it to a teenager insisting his flop of a party was packed. Each attempt to rewrite reality only deepens the comedy.
Make me earn it. Say, we don't know if he was doing the creepy crime, but we do have a cover. And just like the cover up on his face, it is patchy and there's something really ugly under there. The incriminating details just keep coming out. For instance, this resurfaced 2010 Jeffrey Epstein deposition.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Okay, that's a slam dunk. Just say no. Okay, take it away, Jeffrey.
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today.
Clooney piles on by mocking Trump's desperate chase for celebrity approval, pointing out how he longed to be embraced by Hollywood but was repeatedly shunned. He frames Trump as the eternal outsider, a man who dreamed of Oscars but wound up hosting WrestleMania. The sting comes from the contrast. Someone who craved cultural worship but instead became the gatecrasher no one wanted around. Colbert, meanwhile, takes aim at Trump's shaky grip on facts. From endless lies to shameless exaggerations, he paints Trump as a magician whose tricks always flop, wires showing, rabbits refusing to appear. The comedy isn't just in the lies themselves, but in the overconfidence with which Trump delivered them, as if volume could replace truth. Colbert thrives on that contradiction, showing how dishonesty became Trump's full-time act, one that never fooled anyone outside his most loyal crowd.
24-hour news doesn't mean you get more news, it just means you get the same news more. So the more and more and more you hear, these guys, the ratings go up because they can show up empty podiums saying Donald Trump is about to speak, as opposed to taking those 30 seconds and saying, well, let's talk about refugees, which is the biggest crisis that's going on in the country.
Clooney underscores how Trump became a global punchline, noting how world leaders openly laughed during his speeches meant to project authority. He paints Trump's foreign tour as failed comedy, shows an oblivious man strutting across the world stage while allies and enemies alike mocked every move. Clooney sharpens the blow by reminding audiences that the great dealmaker left only weakened alliances and humiliating headlines. Colbert follows by tearing into Trump's rallies, portraying them as ego-driven therapy sessions rather than political events. He compares them to concerts where the band only knows one tired song, replayed until even the crowd seems bored. Trump's recycling of the same slogans becomes a joke in itself. Exposing his reliance on nostalgia rather than substance, Clooney then skewers Trump's obsession with winning while piling up losses from failed lawsuits to midterm defeats, mocking how he spins every setback into a supposed secret victory, like a gambler insisting the casino owes him money. Colbert turns that delusion into tragic comedy, highlighting the bravado masking deep insecurity. He ridicules Trump's attacks on comedians and journalists, portraying him as the first president to treat punchlines like military threats. In Colbert's framing, Trump isn't a titan but a heckler in the crowd, yelling at comics who only make the audience laugh harder. Clooney closes by dismantling Trump's fantasy of a grand legacy, while Trump dreams of monuments and glowing history books. Clooney presents the reality, a political flop remembered like a failed film franchise overhyped, bloated with unwanted sequels, and quickly forgotten. Instead of statues, Trump earns punchlines. Instead of reverence, he's buried under laughter, cemented not as a leader, but as comedy's most enduring cautionary tale.